Hello everyone, my name is Ishika. I'm a 20-year-old university student. I am here with the women power behind Blue Sky Analytics. First, we have Amber, a senior employee of the company whose warm and welcoming nature makes it easy for anyone to talk to her. In her free time, we can find her practicing meditation. Next, we have Tejaswini, an aspiring politician and one of the biggest Swifties I know. In her free time, you can find her convincing people to listen to Taylor Swift. Then we have Abhilasha, the CEO of our company. In her free time, she can be found outdoors doing yoga or trying something new. And lastly, we have Yashika, a multitasking employee at Blue Sky Analytics. Apart from helping everyone at the company run tasks smoothly, she can be found reading books and charming everyone around with her smile. So, thank you so much for joining me here. The first question is I would like to hear about your professional journey till now. Amber, can we start with you?
Sure. I'll try to keep it short. My career journey until now is kind of a long story with a lot of different roles. But I started out studying economics. I began my career on Wall Street, and I did that for almost 6 years before transitioning over to work on environmental issues, which is actually the subject of another video. So I did my master's degree in international policy. And really since then, I've worked in a wide range of roles and organizations, but all around themes of environmental policy development, climate change mitigation and adaptation. And so right now I'm the head of partnerships with Blue Sky Analytics. And in that way, it's sort of a culmination of everything I've done up until now. So I'm really excited about taking this sort of entrepreneurial, innovative journey to really provide great data sets for all of these different challenges that I've worked on throughout my career.
Hi, I'm Yashka. I'm the strategy lead and general counsel at Blue Sky. So I am actually a lawyer by background, also by profession. But like before this, I used to work with law firms. So I worked with two law firms in as an antitrust lawyer, Shardul Merchant and Tri Legal. What brought me to Blue Sky was essentially those existential crisis that you have in life, which is essentially what are we even doing, and what is the purpose of life. I think that's what got me to Blue Sky, because I wanted to work towards something where I could say, oh, this is what I'm doing. And I think Blue Sky is that for me.
Cool. So if you talk about professional journey, I mean, this is my first job, so that's that. But if I have to talk about my background, I did my undergraduation in maths. So I did that from DU, and then I did my postgrad also in maths at LSE, and then I joined Blue Sky. Whenever I say I've done postgrad in maths, everyone kind of goes like, oh my God, you've done post-graduation in maths, but I really don't feel like I'm doing justice to being the maths whiz. I did one interesting internship before joining Blue Sky when I was working with Dr. Pranoy Roy on his book, The Verdict, where he was basically analyzing India's elections so far. I've always been super fascinated by the whole electoral process. So that was really fun for me.
So my professional journey actually started with Amber hiring me. So that's the funniest part. And then I would say ended with my last job at WeWork, and then my t-shirt. So you can see like this is the only t-shirt I have, because and then I tried to hire Amber while drinking wine in New York. Like I remember we were both like drinking wine just outside some event that outside MIT Solve, actually.
I was about to
MIT,
say it was in New York for MIT Solve. I remember that.
which we won in 2019, and that's an event that kickstarted us. And yeah, like in terms of education, I also am going to point out Amber's education because she's like so humble. So she went to like Columbia and Stanford and worked at like Goldman Sachs and all the big banks and everything. And when she was my manager, I was super inspired by her. I went to IIT for undergrad, and then I worked at JPAL for 2.5 years. I did a bunch of internships here and there. Then I went to Yale to study, and I sort of worked in investment, like investing into other sort of startups and companies for a couple of years. And then I came on this side of like sort of seeking investment for my own company.
Okay, so the next question is, there have been studies about how women don't take as many risks as men do, and it's due to multiple factors like how girls are raised compared to boys, but it has nothing to do with their capability. So personally, I feel like in such cases, representation matters. If other women share their experiences of risk taking with me, I will be motivated to take risks in my life. So I want to know from all of you, what is the biggest risk that you have ever taken and what was the outcome? Um, let's start with Paige.
Cool. It's kind of funny to ask me about risk because I've always been a fundamentally anxious person, so I'm like wired to not to be slightly cautious. But I have found myself taking risks when it came to like the more professional or the conventional kind of decisions, like career, what you're studying, that kind of thing. If I talk about the biggest risk I've taken, maybe it was initially when I decided to go out of the country, like alone for my undergrad. At the point, at like the stage I was then, like that was definitely a huge leap of faith. Like I put on myself to like go through with that. Then I guess in some sense, even like joining Blue Sky, not that I was particularly sure of what exactly I wanted to do after I completed my education, but I do remember, I think the first or second time I met Abhilasha, we were talking about how there aren't a lot of women in, say, the startup ecosystem because like they haven't been encouraged to take up entrepreneurship and go that route. So then I was like, okay, I do come from a pretty privileged background, so if I don't take this risk now, then like who really will? So probably Blue Sky, and it's obviously had a really good outcome so far.
Yashika, what about you?
I think professionally, my biggest risk has actually been Blue Sky because uh, so yeah, I was on a very set path. Okay, you go to law school, you become a lawyer, then you go to a law firm, then you're an A1, A2, senior associate. All of that was set. But in the middle of it, I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then when I joined Blue Sky, it was this was before seed round, so I had to take a pay cut and all. And like my father literally had a heart attack. He's like, "What are you even doing? Why are you doing this? What's wrong with you?" I was like, let me do this. Let's see what happens. So I guess Blue Sky was the biggest risk I've taken till now in terms of my career. And the outcome has been pretty great. Like I can see how much sort of my journey has changed in the last 1 year. The growth has been insane. Like I know things now that I would have never known in 1 year.
Let me point out one thing regarding Yashika's interview, especially that when she applied, we were just like, why is such a great lawyer working in such a great firm applying? And I really wanted to hire her, but we didn't have money to sort of take that salary like on the payroll. I was like, if we start paying her, soon we will be bankrupt unless we raise money. And it was just like that time where I was just like, God, please send me money, just a little bit more money so that I can please hire her. And I also must comment that Yashika took a really big pay cut in the first month because I really had no money. COVID had hit, and I think she took almost a 70% pay cut. Then I tried to work to get her back to normal ASAP and then everything. But those 2 3 months, I was so scared that there's this like brilliant lawyer. I really need her and I don't have money to pay her.
Well, I've taken a lot of risks. I've made a lot of changes in my career. I definitely have not followed any of the textbook advice about how you're supposed to build a career and what you have to do in order to be able to take a particular step. But I would say, kind of in a big picture way, I took a very big risk, similar to Yashika, in the sense that I had a very lucrative career on Wall Street. I had been there for a number of years, and if I was still there now, I would have a lot more money in the bank. It would, my life would be very different. But I also would have been miserable because there were a lot of things that I was really feeling very passionately about at that point in time. I mean, this is now, I think maybe 15 years ago or something when I had this realization. But it was still a huge risk. I mean, it was still very scary because you go into, and I actually really went in a strongly opposite direction. I mean, I would say, I don't even know like off the top of my head what the pay cut was, but I basically lived almost a subsistence level for many years because I decided that I just wanted to learn. I wanted to really branch out into challenges around the environment. And I wanted to learn in any scenario that I could get myself into, regardless of what it paid. It was the best thing I could have done. I mean, the experiences I've had, like I never would have had them if I wouldn't have taken that risk. It was totally worthwhile. And, and I think even joining Blue Sky was also a whole new chapter in risk and adventure. And I would not have it any other way.
What about you, Abhilasha? Is like starting Blue Sky the biggest risk you've taken, or is there something else?
So I feel now when I look back at my childhood that I've always been a risk taker. Like I think I was wired in a way to assess risk and differently. When I was 19, I went to Ireland for an internship all alone. And my parents were just like very scared. My mother was like, what if something happens to you? What if you die? And I was scared. I was very scared as well. I used to get lost. This is the pre-Google Maps era. So sometimes I would just not be able to find my way back to my own house because there's no Google Maps. And I would ask strangers for a lift, honestly. And then whenever I would get into the cars with strangers to drop me home, I would remember my mom's sort of words. But the thing with risk is once you keep on taking it, like Amber mentioned, you can take bigger and bigger risks because now you don't get that same level of anxiety, you don't get same level of scare. You have better muscle of taking risks, right? So I don't think Blue Sky was the biggest risk. Now when I look back in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that was a big risk, and then that was a big risk, and that was a big risk. So you just train yourself, and you start to assess risk very differently. It's very important for founders to do that, especially because our life is about taking risk morning, evening, tomorrow, yesterday. It's about taking bigger and bigger risks, but in obviously calculated risks. So no, Blue Sky is one of the big risks that I've taken, but I do micro dosage with risk all the time.
Let's move on to the next question. How do you think men can support women better in workplaces? Yashika, let's start with you.
I think listen, and not hear, listen, which essentially means do not just be present for the sake of being nice, but be present, because something that is there is that you cannot deny people's lived experiences. So just listen to them, I would say, and learn from them. All of us form opinions based on like how we've sort of been brought up, the society and all of that. So the best way I would say is listen and understand people's lived experiences. So I think that's the first step. I think they can figure out the next steps if they just listen.
What about Tate? What do you think?
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about this a lot, even more recently. That in this whole, like, not just workplace, but generally this whole like discourse around feminism, I feel like the male community and what that would be the most helpful is actually for them to decide they want to be an ally or not. I feel like this kind of thing where everything becomes like a debate or discussion point, like you call someone out and then it suddenly becomes a discussion. I feel that it does come from a place of a lot of privilege, because it could be a debate for you, but it has very real world, often horrible consequences on people, on women in this case. So if someone is like, say, calling you out, and thankfully a lot of the communities I've been a part of, I have been in a position where I can call out, male counterparts. Instead of like becoming like like I said, a debate, it should just be about like, okay, I'll reflect, like I'm sorry, and I'll reflect on it, right? So I think it adds to what like Yashika said, that listen a little more instead of just I mean, also it's a very emotional topic, so I would urge people to be a little more embrace the subjectivity and the emotion around it. It's not an objective conversation necessarily, and also it's a journey. Like I myself, like wherever I'm right now, like 5 years ago I had some pretty problematic opinions, so it's not like an end thing, right? We've all, like in school, we've all been superbly stupid. We've said like really ghastly things all the time. So it's okay where you're at, but if you're being called out, like just reflect on it, apologize, and also obviously after you've learned that, maybe next time when there are some male friends of yours that say something that is problematic, like recognize that you do have a lot of power in that situation to say something. And it sometimes it just does more, if a guy is telling a guy also.
Anything else anybody wants to add?
And I can just speak from my own experience that, as we mentioned, with the gender gaps in leadership, what that essentially means is that in many cases, if you join a particular career or a job, odds are still that your boss is going to be a man. So in many ways, I mean, I've just seen in my own personal career ways that my managers have advocated for me in many ways, whether it's ensuring, equity in pay, or, opportunities to really, speak up in meetings, like be more vocal on the team, things like that. That actually makes a huge difference. And I think I've actually been really fortunate to have male managers who have recognized the need to maybe push me a little bit more at times to kind of bring out that side of me, and to also, like you said, recognize the cases where you have the power to change some of these unequal situations that you have under you. So I think sometimes maybe just being conscious of that and taking those steps actually makes a huge difference in someone's career. At least it definitely did for mine.
I think just like sort of Amber's experience, like I've had 4 managers, ironically, all 4 Americans, including Amber herself. So 1 woman and 3 men. And gosh, just the level of enablement that all the people did, and the men did as well, was tremendous. So how I think Tej put it, for men they can either be male allies or they can be indifferent, which is a huge category and a very problematic category, or they could be the problem itself, right? And they're perpetrators of sexism. And the thing is, everybody lies somewhere on the spectrum, so there's no perfect, and everybody changes roles from time to time. Like sometimes a guy is an ally to somebody, but then sometimes that same person is a perpetrator to somebody else. And what Yashika said was right. So listen, don't hear. And the part of that listening is like, when we get sort of charged with something that, oh, you are not doing this right, or you are sexist or something, a lot of people tend to get defensive. It's like, oh my gosh, no, I am feminist, I have female friends. And that defensive thing, I would say even I have done that, and all of us have some sort of ism in us, like whether it's elitism or casteism or racism, something, right? Like Tej said, when we were kids in college, we said ghastly things. I think sometimes I do something and I'm like, oh my God, Abhilasha, that is so elitist of you. Or that is like so racist of you sometimes. Like, you do something and you look back and you're like, no, this was not coming from a place of equality. It was coming from a place of bias. Now, once you've realized that, you can change your behavior, you can fix it, you can address it. What I see happening in the larger world of men is majorly defensiveness. Like you point out something and then they go like, why are you being so emotional? Why are women always angry? Like, right, you're not being allies. It's just if you look at the world right now, right? So somewhere I read statistics, less than 3% of venture capital goes into women. So when you go into a sort of meeting with somebody, and let's say for myself as a founder, let's say somebody does not want to invest in me. Fine, most people do not invest in most founders, right? So it's completely fine. We are fine with rejection. And also like, fine, maybe my idea is crap, but it's very difficult to be able to identify that whether you are not investing or whether you're not taking that conversation forward because of demerits of my idea, or just because of who the presenter is, right? And sometimes men don't make that distinction easy for us, right? So for instance, like the way they present themselves puts us in a place of anxiety, in a place of stress. It doesn't ease and comfort us. And especially like, I would say my old managers have enabled me they have done that a lot, that when you are in a meeting or a room, they have really enabled you. And this, I would say, is a sign of some of the greatest leaders I've met. I mean, most of our team has interacted with Al Gore, and we can say that every time we talk to him, he takes an extra effort to make sure that everybody is extremely comfortable, right? Because as soon as you're in a meeting with him, it's a greatly unequal playing field, right? But he takes an extra effort to make it an equal playing field. Many a men in many a settings do not do that effort. They know that they're in a place of power. There is a inequality embedded in the equation. When they walk into a meeting, into a room, into an interview, whatever interaction, they either don't address that inequality, like they don't register it. They're like, no, there is no inequality, everything is fine. Or they do not address that inequality. Like, sometimes it's a very small thing that you can do to bring the room to the same level playing field. And I think men have a long way to go when it comes to feminism. 99% of men are sexist many a times, certain percentage of time, all the time. Like, there is no perfect, they haven't removed it. It's going to take much time. I think women also have so much internal sexism and so much internalized misogyny that even we are like correcting ourselves. It's just like, even I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, oh, what a sexist person you are. It is going to take time. The world has never been equal, right? The world has never presented this opportunity for the two genders to be equal. It's going to happen for the very first time. So we don't know what that new world will look like. We have to work towards it. And yeah, men, you all have a long way to go. Work. Don't be indifferent, don't be defensive.
As a 20-year-old, any advice for me or other young women?
You're always going to get advice, and advice is great, but just always think of advice in the context of who's giving it, and sort of develop that muscle of being able to kind of have your own standard for what you want from your life, and be able to place advice in that context, no matter who you hear it from. Because I think it can be very easy to get pushed around by what other people say you should be doing. This is what your life should look like, et cetera. And so learn to find your own voice and your own definition of what is success.
My advice is, do not listen to anyone. Forget about taking advice with a pinch of salt. Kick advice away. Like, if it comes to your way, kick it like a ball. And see, I say this as a person who's a little helicopter person. Okay, I have a tendency to give advices to people because that's just my personality. I'm very much like, oh my God, let me help you this. Oh my God, let me answer this for you. But don't listen to any advice, because it's your life. And you know what, actually, the leadership that we were talking about earlier and everything, independent decision making is what pays money. When you look at CEOs of big companies versus like the entry level employees and the salary difference, it's not for the number of hours. Everyone is working the same number of hours. This person is taking more decisions and hence has more control and hence has more, is defining. When we talk about politics, when we talk about even this thing that 8 billionaires of the world have more money than 500 million women in Africa, it's not the money per se. 8 billion men take more decisions about the shape and state and the future of the world. 8 men take more decisions about the future and shape of the world rather than all of the, like, half the women in Africa. So it's just that decision making, which is the main thing. So if you're 20-year-old, unless you take a lot of decisions in day-to-day life, how will you learn? If you keep on listening to other people for anything, right? And girls do this because they're told, go here, don't go there, don't do this, do this. We listen so much. So once you remove all of that clutter away, then you will be able to figure out ki, what do you want to do. And you will do mistakes, you will do gigantic mistakes, but that's actually the whole part of it. Doing those mistakes yourself is the whole process. So don't listen to anyone, including me.
Okay. Yashika, Tej, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what Abhilasha says. I hate advice, so I relate. Plus, yeah, I think there's a lot of power in taking our own decisions and having that agency, even if it does not yield out an outcome that you expected, but to really own it.
I think explore. Just professionally, personally, travel, see new things, and you'll learn. Like learn by seeing new things rather than, I would say, books or anything like that. That would be much more enriching.
Actually, I also want to add on what Yashika said on explore. So you're young, you're 20 years old, you've only been around your parents and schools and everything, right? So you don't know what all you can become. You just don't know all the possibilities that exist out in the world, right? So unless you were to stick your neck out a little and see, you wouldn't know what you can become when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50, right? So it wasn't until I met Amber that I was like, oh, this version of Abhilasha could also exist, right? And I could become like that. So I met her when I was 21-year-old actually. And it was 22, sorry. And it was life changing because I was like, all the people who I had worked with in past and met in past were very different. And here there was like another creature who was very different. And I was like, I like this creature a little more than my parents and my teachers and my other classmates. So unless you explore out and venture out, you wouldn't know. And actually, by the means of this video, please keep this part in. A lot of people in the ecosystem, other people in the name of helping women and enabling women, all they do is do advice and mentorship. Like if you talk about the venture system, incubation, help women do this, help women do that, advice, mentorship. We don't want your mentorship and advice. Keep it to yourself. If you want it, we'll seek it. You want to enable us, you want to empower us, give us real capital. Give us real human capital, real monetary capital. Give us the real machines and the control of the machines, and let us play with it. Enough with your advice and mentorship.
Thank you all for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you all. Let's do this again sometime.
Thanks, Ashika.
Thanks, Ishika.
Yeah,
Thank you, Shika.
Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe.